It was a cold, grey night in London, but inside the famous club, the Roundhouse, the heat was pulsating. Amy Winehouse's fans were eager to see the singer perform live. She had been one of the most talented and controversial artists of her generation, and anticipation was at an all-time high. The venue was packed with people of all ages, their eyes fixed on the door, waiting for the soul muse to take the stage. Amy, with her unmistakable look of high hair and heavy makeup, was the true star of the night. But something was about to happen that no one could have predicted. From the beginning of her career, Amy had been a woman of bold attitudes with an irreverent style and a strong personality. Her unique voice, capable of blending jazz, soul, and R&B, had conquered the world, but at the same time, her eccentric attitudes and her struggle with her own demons were always evident. This, of course, further increased the magnetism surrounding her. The audience waited anxiously as the stage lights finally came on. Amy, with a small smile on her face, appeared on stage. The applause was intense, but she seemed to be in a peculiar state of mind. Her posture was different from her usual, a little more tense, but at the same time, with a mysterious confidence. Without saying many words, she took the microphone and prepared to sing the first notes of the night. The first chord of Back to Black echoed through the air, and the room erupted in a chorus of excitement. However, what happened next was something no one could have expected. Amy seemed disconnected from her own music. At first, fans thought it was part of the performance, but quickly, the singer's behavior took an unexpected turn. During the second verse of Rehab, Amy Winehouse did something no one expected. She abruptly stopped the song, looking at the audience with a look of mild confusion. What seemed like a spirited performance turned into a completely unusual scene. Amy put the microphone aside and looked at the audience, who began to wonder what was happening. Some fans thought she might have forgotten the lyrics, but it soon became clear there was something else. Amy walked to the edge of the stage and made an unexpected gesture. She picked up a glass of water from the piano, looked at the audience, and suddenly threw the glass aside, heedless of the mess it would cause. What seemed like a simple gesture of frustration seemed to carry a much deeper emotional charge. She was visibly shaken, but at the same time, there was something comical about the scene. The stunned audience didn't know how to react. It was a shattering moment. The control she'd always had over her performances, her posture and her demeanor, had vanished for an instant. The audience was silent for a long moment, unsure how to interpret what had happened. After a second of awkward silence, Amy looked back at the audience with a piercing gaze. "I know you expect me to be perfect," she said, her voice cracking, but firm. "But I'm not, and I never have been." The words were spoken with a raw sincerity that cut through the air in the room. The revelation of her vulnerability made the audience feel even closer to the singer. Amy was exposed. For the first time, she showed her fans a side she rarely allowed herself to see, a woman at the mercy of her own emotions and internal struggles. That night wasn't just a show, but a release, a way to show that behind the songs of suffering and disillusionment, there was a real person with flaws and insecurities. What had seemed like a grand musical spectacle was transforming into something much more intimate and painful. Social media exploded with immediate reactions. Amy Winehouse's unusual performance, which had been recorded by fans and quickly spread, became the trending topic. On Twitter, fans tried to understand what had happened. Many were shocked, while others were proud of Amy for her honesty and courage. Tonight, Amy gave us a glimpse into what it truly means to be an artist. It's not just about perfection, but about being vulnerable and genuine. These were the kinds of messages that began to circulate. Meanwhile, theories began to emerge on discussion forums about what had happened to the singer. Some believed Amy had given in too much to her addictions, and it was taking a deep toll on her. Others claimed she was simply being human, something few people of her stature allowed themselves to be. The mainstream media was quick to jump on the bandwagon with explosive headlines about the incident. Speculation abounded. Amy Winehouse, genius or out of control? Amy Winehouse's breakdown, the end of an era. The tabloids, as always, loved a good story and used this moment as fuel to fuel the narrative of the self-destructive singer. But what no one expected was that the repercussions of this event would have such profound effects. Rather than being a momentary scandal, this unusual moment for Amy Winehouse would begin to resonate in a way that would change public perception of the artist forever. After the show, Amy retreated to her dressing room, and her team was visibly worried. She was alone, away from the hustle and bustle of the stage, but clearly deep in thought. The cameras and everyone's curious gazes were on her, but what she felt was no longer about the audience. Amy was, once again, dealing with her constant internal struggle. Who was she really? For years, she was seen as an icon. Her music and image were closely linked to a persona she had created: the rebellious woman, the modern jazz diva, the muse of suffering. But at that moment, she no longer knew who this figure represented. She was lost between what others wanted her to be and what she truly wanted to be. Am I just a product? She wondered, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Am I just a singer people love to hear and see? Or am I more than that? These questions haunted her. The world saw her one way, but she no longer knew if she could recognize herself in it all. She knew she had talent, she knew her music touched people's souls, but deep down she felt something was missing. The impact of that peculiar show wasn't limited to social media and the media. The music world also responded. Artists like Adele, Amy Winehouse, and even other musicians of her generation began to rally in support of the singer. Amy's reflection had struck a chord, and for many, she had become a heroine in her own story. Some of her colleagues expressed support in public messages. Amy is a true artist, and she showed us that her struggle is real, and that we all have our own internal battles, Adele said in an interview when asked about the incident. Meanwhile, other musicians who faced similar pressures in the world of fame recognized Amy's authenticity. Unexpectedly, this moment when she interrupted her performance and exposed herself more than ever made people view her with more empathy. She was no longer just a singer facing controversy, but a woman trying to deal with her own wounds. The support from fans was overwhelming. Instead of criticizing, many began to see her in a more human light, understanding that the pressure of being a star and dealing with her own demons could be overwhelming. The chaos of that night had left its mark. Although the interruption to the show had been unexpected, what she didn't know was that the moment would bring more than just emotional reactions and media criticism. The reflex Amy had in confronting her own fears and insecurities began to affect her in profound and complex ways. But contrary to what many imagined, that wasn't a downfall, but rather a turning point, where she began to explore more deeply what it truly meant to reinvent herself. After the show and the moments of introspection, Amy embarked on a process of self-discovery. For years, she had been seen as the muse of suffering, pain, and tumultuous relationships. Her songs, which spoke of lost love, addiction, and despair, had become a reflection of her life. But she was beginning to realize that wasn't all she wanted to be. She wanted more. She wasn't just the owner of a unique voice. Amy wanted to be a complete woman, with all the nuances that life brought. Amy began seeking help, with therapies and counseling that she had previously ignored. She sought someone who could help her understand the complexity of her existence. Her own music began to change, as if she had somehow decided to rewrite the story of her own life. She began collaborating with other musicians, but in a different, way, not just out of a need to create success or achieve greater fame, but with the intention of healing herself through music. Her new chords and melodies were no longer about suffering, they were about transformation, about the courage to change. During this period, Amy also withdrew somewhat from the media and external pressures. She was seen less in public, but when she did appear, it was at smaller events, where her demeanor was softer and more receptive. At one of these gatherings, she made a statement that would resonate deeply with her fans. "I'm not the person you saw on stage anymore. I'm learning to be my true self, and that's a process. I'm not perfect, but I'm trying." These words, spoken with a shaky voice and full of sincerity, began to resonate with her fan base. People were beginning to see beyond the image of the troubled artist. They were seeing a woman who was finally facing her own demons. Amy Winehouse's journey to finding herself was long, but she was determined to move forward. And, most importantly, she was learning to love and care for herself in ways she never had before. Amy Winehouse's transformation after that episode on the London stage did not go unnoticed. In the years following that show, during which the singer interrupted her performance, Winehouse began to be seen in a new light by the music industry. Her journey of self-discovery and the way she dealt with her vulnerability led many musicians to see her as an icon not only of music, but also of resilience and authenticity. For years, the music industry had expected Amy to be a kind of commodity, a star constantly on the rise, churning out hit after hit, flawless in every performance. But what the music industry hadn't anticipated was that she was an artist with an indomitable soul who wouldn't settle for being just a shadow of what others expected of her. With her transformation, Amy became involved in causes that went far beyond music. She used her visibility to create awareness campaigns about mental health and addiction, addressing issues she herself had experienced and overcome in a way that seemed impossible to many. She spoke openly about the struggles of being a famous woman in such a ruthless industry and how it affected her emotional health. In doing so, she not only redefined her own story, but also helped many others feel understood. Younger artists began to view Amy differently. Instead of imitating her, as they had in the early years of her career, they began to admire her for her strength and her fight against adversity. She became a source of inspiration for artists like Adele, Sia, and even Beyoncé, who began to incorporate a more sensitive and human approach to fame and mental health into their own careers. Amy's music has undergone a resurgence. Her songs, once seen as representations of a turbulent era, have come to be seen as true testaments to transformation and overcoming. Her album, Back to Black, already critically acclaimed, was re-released in a special edition in 2025, accompanied by a documentary that captured Amy's process of change and her connection with her fans. This material revealed behind-the-scenes insights into her internal struggles, her moments of doubt, but also her strength. Amy Winehouse's impact wasn't limited to music, but extended to how the industry viewed the pressures on stars and their personal lives. The discussion of artists' privacy and mental health became a central topic at events and discussions about the future of the music industry. Amy Winehouse's family support was crucial during her journey of self-discovery and transformation. Her relationship with her parents was always complicated and full of ups and downs, but over the years, she grew closer to them on a deeper level. Her mother Janice became even more important as Amy went through difficult times, and Amy's mother became a source of support and guidance. In 2025, after a long period of emotional separation, Amy finally reconnected with her father, Mitch Winehouse. Despite past tensions, she understood that true healing lay in accepting her family's flaws and seeking genuine reconciliation. It was through this process of reconnection that Amy found the peace she had been seeking in her personal life. One of the most moving scenes of this journey occurred when Amy, in a television interview, spoke tearfully about forgiveness and healing. She recalled painful moments with her parents, but at the same time reflected on how much love and mutual understanding were necessary to heal the wounds of the past. The interview was a milestone not only in her personal life, but also in how the public came to see Amy as a woman who, despite her struggles, found the strength to forgive and move forward. Amy Winehouse, though a polarizing figure for most of her life, became an icon of overcoming obstacles. Her musical legacy, her timeless songs, and her journey of transformation continue to touch the hearts of millions. The image of a woman who battled her own shadows and prevailed despite adversity remained strong after her death. In 2025, Amy's impact on music and pop culture has never been greater. New generations of musicians continue to draw inspiration from her, seeking to delve deeper into the jazz and soul influences that Amy revitalized with her unique voice. Her ability to blend elements of the past with modernity has become a key characteristic of her work, and she remains a reference for those seeking to express authenticity in their music. Furthermore, the mental health and support movement for vulnerable artists began to gain more momentum thanks to Amy's example. In many cities around the world, mental health support centers for artists began to be established, and Amy Winehouse's music was incorporated into programs promoting self-awareness and therapy. Amy Winehouse's final concert, held in early 2026, was unforgettable. She took the stage not with the pressure to be perfect, but with the freedom to be herself. The show was a celebration of her journey and all she had overcome. It wasn't just a musical performance, it was a healing ritual, a message that true freedom comes from embracing all parts of who we are. As Amy sang her final song, she looked at the audience with a genuine smile, knowing she had finally found the peace she had been searching for. So long, she had freed herself from the pain that had plagued her for so many years. The audience, now more mature and understanding, gave her a standing ovation, not only for the great singer she had always been, but for the woman she had become. Amy Winehouse, with her music, her voice, and her truth, will never be forgotten. Her legacy is not just that of an immortalized artist, but of a woman who, despite everything, rediscovered herself.